for me because government insists that there's no national shortage of fuel. Government is saying we're okay, we're fine, but yet on the ground, there's controlled supply. There's delivery delays and panic buying, and is creating what feels like an Armageddon kind of scenario. And add to that, yesterday we had those record fuel price hikes, and also you have a weakening rand. So it's just a conglomeration of so many things amid this global oil shock, driven obviously by the conflict in the Middle East. And what you have is a system, essentially a system that is under pressure and is exposing just how fragile South Africa is to fuel security. And we're going to be unpacking all of this with the executive director and head of research for money, banking, and macroeconomics at Firstsource Money, Mr. Redge Nkosi, who's joining us telephonically. Mr. Nkosi, thank you so much for chatting to us. Always a pleasure. Welcome to News and Views.
Indeed, thanks for having me today.
I've been wanting to engage with you regarding the crisis in the Middle East and ultimately how it will affect South Africa. And I think I'm very, very happy that I have the opportunity. But this time around, I want us to focus on fuel. I think this is the top topic. Everyone is talking about it right now, and from South Africa's point of view, at least from how I analyze it, is that there's a clear disconnect right now between what government is saying and what's happening on the ground. Officials say supply is stable, there's no need to panic, there's no need for South Africans to panic buy, but yet people go to the pumps, to the petrol stations, and there's fuel rationing. There are petrol stations that are saying we're out of fuel, they've run dry. From an economic perspective, do you think this is a real shortage that we're facing, or a market distortion of some sort driven by behavior and maybe incentives?
I think that's a very important question, isn't it? We have to distinguish these issues. By way of an example, I went myself yesterday to buy. I saw that the pump wasn't pumping properly. I was hesitating. Anyway, I did get some petrol. I went to the other one somewhere else. I was told the price had already gone up, and so on. Yesterday, not today. Yesterday. So, but what is happening in reality is that there is no problem with regard to fuel in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, South Africa does get fuel from Africa and part of it from Saudi Arabia. But even from Saudi Arabia, South Africa's ships are carried out through the Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz. So we don't think there's that problem at all from the South African perspective. What is happening here is what we normally call quantity rationing.
Mm-hmm.
Quantity rationing is a case where institutions, or rather firms or companies, that are in that business for reasons known to themselves, but what reasons would be described as for purposes of profitability, want to ration, want to select as to who has to get how much of fuel from their pump stations. So this is what is happening right across the country, because they say, well, look, why can't I have so many gallons that are remaining in my pumps and sell them at a higher price? It's going to be very lucrative, isn't it? That is exactly what is happening, not necessarily because of the politics or the invasion of terrorist states of Israel and the U.S., of Iran, of the invasion of Iran, but rather our own companies that want to make a quick buck. It's going to be very lucrative, with price soaring by close to $5, 5 rand, as I'm told.
And I think that's very, very important to note. The fact that majority of what we're witnessing right now is to a large extent actually self-inflicted. The panic buying that we're seeing, the stockpiling, and what some are calling this artificial demand that's been created versus the genuine global supply disruptions. I want to focus just generally on South Africa. We have lost significant refining capacity over the years. And now, as you mentioned, import most of our fuel, whether it's from the Middle East, Nigeria, and other parts of the continent. is this crisis the clearest sign that our energy model is structurally exposed? That if indeed things do get as bad as they probably could, we'll be left with our pants down.
I think that you're driving us to a very important point. Few years back, you may remember, there was an initiative at Kuha Port in Eastern Cape of building a refinery called Mtombo. Right? That was timid by some people who said, well, no, it's too expensive and so on. So the same story like we heard about nuclear that President Zuma had at some point in time said, it cost R1 trillion. Meanwhile, the new renewables costing far much more than that. Yes, indeed. We are, in fact, going to be exposed not long from now that our decisions with regard to our refining capacity were, in fact, decisions for children, not for states that are strategic, countries that have national interest at their heart. Today, we have a refining capacity, as you know, that's quite little. And that is also causing problems. And why should a country like South Africa, which essentially supplies quite a number of countries within the region, have almost no refining capacity, dependent on the whims of countries far from us? I mean, we should understand that while it seems remote, terrorist countries like the US and Israel can actually attack South Africa. Okay? And if they do that, they can even blockade South Africa. And if they do that, then we have no supply from all these places. Refining, which can't be done in the country, is done somewhere else. So it's important and very clear that South Africa has to reorganize itself with regard to energy security to ensure that we have sufficient refining capacity, but also supplies that are from within the area, perhaps through even pipelines. That's where I stand with this regard.
Very, very important to note. How important is Africa trading going to be from now going forward? Is this yet another wake-up call for African countries to make trading between ourselves a bit more easy, a bit more simple? Because we have all of these resources. I mean, countries like Nigeria, countries like Angola are very, very big oil-producing countries, and it looks like the rest of the world will be looking into that direction. The Dangote refinery, from what I've been reading, has been inundated with requests from a lot of countries to start refining and supplying oils because of obviously the Strait of Hormuz, as you mentioned, being closed and the Middle Eastern crisis. Would this be another wake-up call for the African continent to get their house in order, to make sure that should whatever that is happening in other parts of the world happen and disrupt economies, we can cushion ourselves by trading and doing business with each other?
Well, the wake-up call was long ago, isn't it?
True.
It was long ago. However, we lack leadership. You're talking about Angola. Angola is SADC, remember? We can run a pipeline from Angola to here quite easily. Quite easily. We can do it right across the SADC and East African community so that intra-Africa energy supply is guaranteed, not dependent on the whims of some countries very far away. Dangote that you're talking about is now going to be the largest, if not already the largest refining firm in the world. And of course, most people don't like it. We can obviously ensure that we have sufficient supplies from a refinery just across, not very far from here. Nigeria is not entirely far, all right? So it needs intra-Africa trade and economic relations at such a pace and at such a level, scope, that is unprecedented. However, the challenge is, should we begin to do that, apart from the poor leadership that we experience, we listen to foreigners telling us what to do, especially Europeans. And this is where the problem is. They say, no, don't be friend to Russia. I mean, don't befriend Iran, but befriend terrorists like Israel and so on. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And we have, therefore, a leadership in the continent which fails to take or to learn lessons like today, continually looking to the very terrorists to help us. When in fact the terrorists are all about saying, let's get as much as we can from Africans and disrupt them so that they don't have any independence and continually dependent on them. There has been a wake-up call. This wake-up call is long term. This is yet indeed another sharp wake-up call for Africans to show that there's so much unity, but not just unity, political unity, economic unity, and indeed strategic unity. We should have had this long time. This is indeed just one of the many wake-up calls for Africa to act quite urgently.
Very, very important to note. And lastly, before I let you go, Brother Redge, anything from your side regarding the state of affairs right now, the United States of America, the war that they've waged on Iran alongside Israel, and how it's impacting not just only the Middle East, but the whole world, essentially?
Oh, absolutely. The U.S. regime and the Israeli regime waged an unprovoked war on the Islamic Republic of Iran, a peaceful land that sought and seeks to live peacefully amongst people, undisturbed by terrorists like Israel and the U.S. have waged a war. These countries have waged a war that is now has already disrupted a great deal of economic activity. But what is funny is that they are in fact feeling the pinch for their unprovoked war on Iran. Not only them, we are also feeling the pinch today as we speak. We're talking about oil. It's precisely because of the terrorist activities on Iran. So the entire world is facing a challenge by two countries, two regimes, the U.S. and the Israeli regime, that has caused all this mess. And it's time now that Africa, indeed all peace-loving countries, to stand together and ensure that these two regimes, the Israeli regime and the U.S. regime, never commit these atrocities, should in fact not attempt. And Iran has done us a great service, let me be honest, by doing some of the best harm a small country can do to terrorist regimes like the U.S. and indeed Israel. So we're suffering today. Quite frankly, as a consequence of that, the world is in panic. There may be recessions, not only here in South Africa, much of Africa, and indeed the rest of the world. We are in a very big bind as I speak.
Very, very important to know, Redge. Always a pleasure chatting to you. I really appreciate you giving us your time, and hope we chat again soon.
My pleasure.
There we go. That was Redge Nkosi giving us, I think, very, very important insights there, particularly on the African continent and how this is yet another wake-up call for Africa. Intra-Africa trading and intra-Africa independence from the rest of the world, because if you look at it, while the world is in panic and everyone is all over the place, people don't know where to go and where to buy what, Africa internally has everything that Africa needs. We mentioned Dangote refineries right now in Nigeria. They've been inundated. It's countries from all over the world trying to use Nigeria as an alternative. You have Angola, which is in our region, the SADC region, another oil-producing country, part of OPEC. And we are not leveraging off of that. Majority and bulk of our oil still comes from the Middle East. The Strait of Hormuz is closed, and we are panicking. We are panicking, and we're being found with our pens down. So it's going to be interesting to see if this time around, the leaders of the African continent in particular are going to catch a wake-up call to realize that we need those Africa trading agreements, and we need to have them in place so to cushion the people of Africa and to do swift, easy business all across the continent. But otherwise, you can engage with us. You can tell us how you've been managing this fuel crisis. What are some of the weird things that you come across at the pumps? Some people went to the pumps yesterday before the fuel increase went into effect, and already some of the petrol stations were selling the fuel at high prices. Some people were told to ration the fuel. Some people were told no, diesel is not available, which as Redge mentioned, it's very, very much self-inflicted. People are trying to leverage and trying to make money. You go and try to fill up your car with diesel, petrol, they tell you it's not there. They're waiting for the 24 hours. They're waiting for today so that they sell it to you at a more hiked price. So you can engage with us on our social media. You can give us a call, or you can send us a WhatsApp message or a voice note. We want to hear from you. We want to hear how the state of affairs is affecting you. And yeah, it's crazy times, it's scary times, because most of the times we speak about these things and they feel so far away. We feel so disconnected to them. But the reality has hit that South Africa is not an island, and we will not be cushioned as much as we have been throughout the years to some of the atrocities that are happening throughout the world. And we're dealing with a maniac right now who's at the helm of, quote unquote, the most powerful nation in the world. Going to take a quick break. News and Views continues after this.